The plan was to have a mentor program, as well as some other different activities going on after school. Mentor programs used both during school, after school for tutoring, and it's been implemented both for students who have social anxiety related to school, along with those that need additional academic supports. We really thought there was going to be a large need for student mentoring, given the fact there's not been a ton of social interaction between students, and maybe not positive role models for students in the last 2 years, or maybe there are. One of the things we found was the teachers were not really taking advantage of the mentoring opportunities. They were very interested in providing after-school activities for kids, and very interested in providing tutoring activities that kids needed after school, but not mentoring per se. So we're shifting the focus of that mentoring program to do the same things and introduce the same concepts, but to do them during the after-school activities and doing them during the after-school tutoring that's already going on, because those are the things that kids are interested in staying for and teachers are interested in providing. So it's something that we've needed to adjust and have. Also, the academic piece falls under Commitment 1. We are currently active in an ELA and math audit of our curriculum, where we meet twice monthly with whole grade level teams and grade level representatives. September, we started off in both reviewing and setting goals, discussing best practices, and what the components were to be a successful writer and reader in Central Square. And look at our current scope and sequence of our curriculum, what we're using in grades 6 through 8. October, reviewed common assessments and assessment data, and really looking for gaps in learning. This is an ongoing process, but it's definitely more formal through our SEP plan. November, look to implement the crosswalk from the New York State Common Core and the Next Generation Standards. Those have been coming for a long time and rolled out over a long period of time, and some of it's been delayed due to COVID. But really, what do we used to do? What is our next step? And making the connection between those two things. And then December, grade level teams worked with the data analysis and the gaps that have been found to start doing supplemental lessons to fill in additional needs that our students have been found to have based on gaps in their learning and in our teaching and in our content. Commitment 2 is every child feels safe, respected, supported, and has a true sense of belonging. As already noted, we've done some inclusivity awareness sessions. There's definitely, schools are very different now than they were 5 years ago for a variety of reasons, but really working to make sure that every student knows that every other person in that school has a right to be there and belongs there and is a part of our community, and making sure that everybody is treating each other as such. Also part of that process is working with attendance to improve student attendance. It's been very easy during COVID when you were remote learning, you could shut off your screen and pretend you were attending to school. Students have tried shutting off their screen, but it's harder when they're right in front of us. And some have tried staying home, but we've really worked with a new attendance tracking protocol to work with our students. You'll see the reference to CAPS up there. That is our counselors, administrative, school psychologists, and our social workers and social worker assistant, to look at specific data on individual students, trying to identify barriers. How can we get your student to school? What can we do to remove those barriers? And creating attendance success plans for those students to make sure that we are doing the best job we can to get them here. Some of the things are a school-wide thing. You know, are we making sure that how they're being greeted on a daily basis? And that somebody notices if they're not there. And some of them are much more individual things, and how can we help you and your family make sure there's not a barrier to your student coming to school. We really wanted to also engage students, middle school students, any students, probably anybody likes to come to places where they have fun and enjoy things. We try and make class like that, but we also try and make connections so that can happen after school, which we have done through surveying students and taking their interest into account, not just creating things teachers want to share, but creating things that students want to participate in. So we have a whole bunch of students who are participating in after-school clubs and activities, some of which, again, teacher-led, teacher interest. Some of them are a little bizarre. I never thought that cursive writing club would be a big hit. Kids don't know how to sign their names and they want to learn how to write in cursive. Cursive and Calligraphy Club is the place to be after school. I never would have guessed that. That was a teacher request, not a student request. We had a student who wanted to have a debate club, and I argued with them about it. They won. One of the teachers said, sure, I'll run a debate club, no problem. And really looking for things that we can get students involved in, they have an interest in. There'll be a running club starting shortly. But we have 265 students, 47%-ish are currently participating in an after-school group or activity, and a whole bunch that are participating in school sports. And that is a huge, huge thing for hooking kids into school, which gets them in school. And we actually surveyed outside of school things, and I think that added another 7% to that number. So we have a lot of students doing an awful lot of things in and outside of school, which is fantastic. So this whole commitment, a lot of it is based on student surveys. And one of the things that we asked back in spring of 2021, students do they feel like they belong? That was at 80% last year, and this year 84% strongly agreed or agreed with that statement. So that's one of our goals, and we're working towards that. In fact, I think that may be one that we have achieved early. Commitment 3, every student has strong, trusting relationships with adults and with peers. This one is interesting. One of the things we did last year, part of the SEP plan, was to work with groups of students and get student feedback. And it was interesting to hear what they had to say about what they felt their relationships were with teachers and especially with peers. And so we've done some work with making sure that they are getting time to talk to each other, and we're stressing how they talk to each other. Kids that are friendly is different than kids that are friends, and how you talk to people you are friendly with can be taken very wrong if they are not friends. And we've done a lot of work with that, and we've tried to do all kinds of things where we can involve parents and students in. We did a back-to-school barbecue, which was not in the cafeteria, but was a walk-up, drive-up barbecue. Sadly, very sadly, Mr. King was not allowed to break out the hot dog gun like he wanted to and shoot hot dogs into moving cars as they went by, but we came up with a safe option for that. Monthly newsletters, having a winter concert in person, moving to in-person PTO meetings, giving parents and families the choice of do you want in-person or Zoom parent-teacher conferences. All those are things we've done to try and get the community participating in school. Which has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit in the last couple of years due to circumstances. And we've definitely altered the master schedule to allow time for homeroom or advisorship if you're an old school, middle school person from back in the 70s. That was the term they would have used. But every other week with advisement built into the schedule for students, so they have an adult they can connect with. And we've assigned 2 teachers to that because we have a number of teachers at any point in time who might be out, or two staff members, I should say. So if staff member A is out, staff member B knows the kids and they have somebody there who they've had a relationship with since the beginning of the year. So that is huge. So that's time for positivity project to be implemented, and we've done code of conduct talks and all kinds of other stuff during that time. And I'm very happy that we built that in. So that's just a quick overview update where we are with the SEP plan. The commitments were created based on data, survey results, instructional reports, and feedback from our kids, feedback from our committee. We've had one official meeting with our state ed representative, and she is very pleased with the direction that we're headed to support our students, and that has been going very well. And so we've got our fall survey results really indicate we have met a lot of our goals, or at least headed in the right direction, and hopefully that continues as we work to make sure that everybody at CSMS feels safe, respected, and supported. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Matt. That was very thorough.
Now, Matt, you're the first one that's been here after December, right? So all the other schools have talked about scores and testing and things, and generally, you know, students have been behind, right, as far as for in-home learning and COVID responsibilities. So how do you see the reading and mathematics scores, the first half of the year? Are they what you expected? Were they?
We did our baseline early in the year. We're actually I think we were supposed to start Friday with our mid-year results. So it's a little wacky at this point in time with snow and cold, et cetera. They're definitely not where they would have been in the past, but teachers are trying to address that, connect kids back into school. There's no doubt that at all levels, COVID has really wreaked some havoc on where kids are, where we would like them to be. Very quick anecdotal discussion I had with a reading specialist the other day. Like, the scores for their particular class at that time, they said, were very strong, and we're making a lot more progress. So they've jumped up quicker, but they're still not where they would have been if we had 2 solid years of good in-person instruction.
Right. Okay. And I applaud you for the 80 to 84%. I mean, it's a good sign of improvement. I think it's a big deal.
It's exciting because you don't know how kids are going to perceive things and if they're going to want to participate in things. But middle school, I heard somewhere a long time ago that you are what you teach, which means middle school teachers are really middle school kids. So they get very excited about things, and which makes it fun, exciting, and a little dangerous sometimes for them and for the kids. But we have a great time, and they really, 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 really love their kids, and that's the biggest thing. That makes the whole difference.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations.
Matt, was that was unique kids then in the number of participating in extracurricular and sports? So you truly have 89% of that school's population are involved in
Something. Yeah.
And probably many of them involved in both.
And probably a lot involved in multiple things. And I think part of that's because kids have always gravitated towards sports, but the things that they want to see offered for after-school activities, again, who knew cursive club would be huge? Who knew that cricket, if anybody knows what a cricket is, there's a cricket club. Who knew that Dungeons and Dragons would be an awesome thing that kids would really get involved in? But I think it's because the number of opportunities and the width and breadth that have been able to be offered that's really hooked that number of students. And there's many who would there's several students who would stay every night of the week if they could.
And just to piggyback on that, because it's a relevant time too, it's about parental risk. So I've had a lot of conversations with parents, and they're like, Mr. we got to learn to live with COVID. And so whether that's about sports or guard or drumline or any of the clubs that we have, they were thrilled that we were providing so many opportunities, not only at the high school, middle school, but at the elementary. One day at Miller Hawk, there were about 88 kids that stayed after school. That's far more than normal to do some type of enrichment or, whether it's academics or something to get engaged in a fun activity. So I was going to save this, but again, having the conversation, because it's part of a bigger conversation. So you think of DECA, you think of sports, you think of guard trips. At first, if you would have told me at the beginning of this year that I would approve trips where they were going to have 4 people in a room, I would have said, no way. But the more I thought about this, parents have to be comfortable with this. Because I understand, if you go 2 people in a room, it drastically increases the cost of staying in the hotels for the kids and whatnot, whether it's DECA. So I am approving that. I've had parents say, I like this district because it's about choice. There's a lot of places right now in our country that don't provide people with choices. And at the end of the day, a parent said to me perfectly yesterday over the phone, Friday over the phone. They said, if parents want to choose to keep their kids from participating in sports or band or clubs, that's their right as a parent to do that. But I love this district for not making that choice for every parent, because the window of opportunity is closing. And these kids who started as freshmen, aren't having that much in-person learning until this year in school. I just think we have to just keep moving forward. And I got to tell you, when it comes up to me at the superintendent report, I'm going to be announcing something that was just released at 5:32 that makes me very happy regarding staff members and the definition of a fully vaccinated person. So whatever happened a few hours ago, I think the state is finally realizing that they have to move forward. But in doing that, parents have that ability to say, no, I don't want my kid to stay for Dungeons and Dragons. I get it, the regular school day, that's the essential part, but there are a lot of parents that say that part after school is just as essential because I want my kid to reconnect. So I'm glad when I'm over at the middle school and I'm seeing what you guys are doing after school, Matt, it's wonderful.
Yeah, because remember when we had the consultant come in, and if you know, the statistics showed that if a child was in 2 after-school activities, right, their grade point average was 10 points higher.
Yep.
So I think that if you're capturing, you know, 90% of the kids in middle school, and if that can carry on to high school, I just think it's going to be nothing but really positive results. I mean, the board, you know, coming out, you know, 3-4 years ago, that was you know, really true. So.
Yep.
You know, and I think it goes to show too, I mean, to give the teachers some kudos, because to have that amount of students, you know, actively participating in an after-school activity, that means we have that many staff or teachers who are willing to, you know, facilitate these things. And I think it says a lot about our district. You know, I'm super happy to hear, you know, you encouraging these trips and letting these kids experience these, you know, overnight trips and these extracurricular activities. I mean, I think, yeah, we have to learn to live with it. Kids need to get back into things, and we do offer choice, which is awesome, but I think it's great that we have teachers that help us, you know, champion that, so thank you.
For sure. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 2, Mrs. Ladd, with the budget presentation. Look at that exodus. Just,
I was like, what, you're staying for the riveting budget?
Fantastic.
So we do need to start the budget presentations, even though they're dry and they take up a lot of time. So beginning this month, sometime in the next, I would say.
I don't think she's on the speaker.
yeah.
Just got a light up.
It's what, okay,
There you
perfect, thanks. Okay, the revenues should come out sometime, probably second, third week of June. So we want to be ready with the February presentations to do the revenue presentations and some of the other expenditures. And can't decide exactly how we want to do it with the one meeting a month. So I think after tonight, we're going to have to maybe do 2 presentations for the next 3 times. But we'll get there. So the beginning of budget is basically projections. The comptroller, you hear it when you do your fiscal trainings that we're required to make long-range planning and do projections. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. The little program that I use is the one off the comptroller's website. So basically we start, these first 6 slides are just generalizations of the numbers that we use to project. This is the actual numbers that were audited at the end of June. We came in, our revenues at 80.5 million, and our expenditures were at 76.6 million. So we were almost 4 million over, which we discussed then. We made reserve contributions and a plan, a long-range plan that we're going to fund and ask for a capital reserve to support future capital projects. What these look like, just big picture. On the revenue side, it's just the big thing that I want you to understand is how we only have 2 revenue sources, and state aid is closer to 60% versus 40% tax levy. The other 6% are little small pieces of our budget. And on the expenditure side, also the same pie graphs, but what I really want you to remember is that salary and benefits are the bulk of it. About 75% of our budget is people. The rest of it are small little percentages. So this is the budget that we're in currently. It's just under an $86 million budget, and it's basically divided in the same categories: revenues between state aid and tax levies, and expenditures 75% salaries and benefits. So what you do with this little program is you take those three categories. You take your 2021 actual to budget, and then you put your 21-22, the budget that we're in right now, and we put assumptions in these large expenditure categories, and then push out revenue projections. And basically, just to get an idea of where do we need to be when that state aid number comes out from the governor this month. We do know already that the teacher's retirement system is going to go up slightly, but the good news is that the employee's retirement system is going to decrease. Our health insurance has been in the 5 or 6% category the last couple of years, and we're now with the Central New York Consortium, and that's kind of their goal too, to keep the health insurance. It's always going to go up, but to try to keep it fairly level. So knowing those items, I basically pull out scenarios. So on the expenditure side, in each of the three scenarios, we're using 4% on the payroll. That first year, we know now the ERS is going to go down, but then I'm using 2%, TRS 2%, the health insurance 5%. The utilities I keep, they consistently go down with the changes that we've been making over the years. So I usually do a no change and then try to follow it in the actuals. BOCES, I'm giving them a 3% increase. Our debt service, we have actual schedules, so I push those numbers into it, and everything else at 3%. So using those expenditure estimates, in the first projection, we have a no change in the state aid and a zero tax levy, because we know we want to use a zero increase this year on the tax levy. Moving forward, I'm doing 2%, which is essentially the tax cap. I'm taking the appropriated fund balance down by $1.5 million and then leaving it unchanged going forward and leaving the all other revenues unchanged. And remember, these are real big swipes at it, but just gives you a little something to think about. The appropriated fund balance I'm taking down because we put it up last year and this year thinking that we were going to get hit, and then that never happened. So when you push that out with a no change state aid increase, you can see the gaps down at the bottom. Negative millions, 3.7, 6.3. And if you look at the percentage change, the one column up above there, 2.6, 3.6, 2.4. That's a very doable, decent budget increase. So the expenditure projections would bring us in to a nice small increase in our budget. The gaps are due to the fact that our state aid would be unchanged. So we definitely need that state aid to make those numbers work and to keep, this is keeping everything that we currently have in our budget. So the same scenarios with a 3% state aid increase, those gaps go down at a decent, about half. And if you do it again at a 5% increase, that's where we want to be. Those 1 millions and less, we can deal with that by, appropriating fund balance, making small changes. So what I want you to take out of this long-range planning exercise is that we need to get closer to a 5% state aid increase to really maintain what we have and have decent, normal expenditure increases. And basically, because our state aid percentage is so high, it's in the state aid number, but that we need those bigger percentages. We're not going to get it out of our tax levy. When we at the 2% tax cap, that doesn't make it to maintain our budget. So that's basically what this exercise is. They want us to do it with our boards and with our community so that everybody understands what our budget long range looks like and what we need to do. So the second part of this, because I'm kind of combining now tonight two different exercises, we use the Forecast 5 analytics, which is, it's a service that puts together, they have access and put together the data for all school districts across New York State. And one of the reasons I really like this program and using it is because it gives us big picture and understanding of what we look like versus the rest of the state. But this one I like, this is just Oswego County, and Central Square is the second one, it's just in alphabetical order. We do have the highest enrollment. We go back and forth with Oswego City, but give or take, one or the other of us are right there.
And you're probably wondering why that's about 200 less, because that's, what, a year and a half ago, correct?
That's gonna be last year's enrollment, yep.
And right now, we're above 3,700, so oddly enough, we actually increased enrollment during this pandemic.
The one thing, if you look at it, I think is very interesting, that CWR, that's wealth ratio, at 0.56, one is average across the state. Obviously, we all in Oswego County are less than 1%. We're on the poorer side of the state, but the 0.56 for Central Square, we are the wealthiest almost in this county, except for Mexico. Yeah.
Well, Sandy Creek.
Right, and Sandy Creek is an interesting scenario because they have a lot of water property and a lot of places that are highly assessed. But people actually don't live there. Yeah. It is. This is a graph, the gray lines are the district enrollment. So as you can see, our district has slowly been declining in enrollment. Our economic status, which is basically taken from our free and reduced lunch, has maintained itself. It started to go up a little bit, and now it's coming back down. And our students with disability status has been constant. So the students with disabilities because that's been constant and our enrollment's slightly going down, we have a higher percentage of students with disabilities, but we actually have a very similar number that we have every year. The ELL is English language learners, and we very rarely have much of a number that even shows on the graph. I like this graph and I like to show it because this is Central Square on the left and the entire state next to it. So the orange is state aid and the blue is local, whereas the rest of the state, on average, districts get 61% of their revenues from taxes and 39% from state aid, whereas we're closer to the opposite of that. So we're very dependent on state aid. And I like this graph because it really shows that. And the one next to it just shows it as a total cost per student. Our total cost per student is $22,000 and change, and the total for the state is $25,000 and change. So we do pretty well with our money as far as the per student cost. These are the percentages of the expenditures, and I just show this again. If you look over to the right, our cost per student is less than the total for the state. But I like to show it because sometimes I think you wonder why I have the categories that I have. It's because it's prescribed by the comptroller's office, and all data for all districts is submitted in those same categories. So you can see that we are not different than many or all of the states across, or all of the districts across the state as far as our percentages. We all really run about the same and spend most of our money on salary and benefits and the other incidental costs. The part that's different is the revenue side, the differences between the state aid and the taxes. This is the cost per pupil just for our county, and I always like to show this because we do have the lowest cost per student, but a lot of that has to do with a lot of the districts that we're being compared to in our county have a really small denominator. You know, I think Sandy Creek maybe has 800 students, so it makes it really hard for them to compete in the cost per student. It's because we have so many students that our cost looks a lot better. That being said, we do beat Oswego and Fulton, and they're the other two that have a higher student enrollment. This is just the, get on there. The green line is revenues, the orange line is expenditures, and then down on the bottom is fund balance. And I think I say this a lot, but I feel like the budget and trying to make change in the budget, it kind of almost works like a ship. You really, really have a hard time pushing those percentages at all with, it seems like you're making big changes and then you get to the total and it hardly even touches the percentages on those totals. And you can see that with, you kind of get your revenues going and you're like, okay, they're getting higher. We can now push up the expenditures and then the expenditures kind of meet them. I feel like it's a game, one follows the other. The revenues go down and then you try to get the expenditures to match them. I do like this, that it's showing that we are making some progress with our fund balance. And because of that fund balance, I wanted to put the fund balance graph up here so you can see that that we have been adding to the fund balance, which has been one of our goals. And then when you see that, I think the next question becomes, well, do we have too much in our fund balance? So if you look at the rest of the county, as an average, this is a fund balance as a percentage of revenues. We're pretty close to the end. So as compared to other districts in our county, and again, I always say don't really look at Mexico because that's kind of a different scenario. But we are right on par with fund balance. If not, we could use a little bit more. So what are the recommendations? And basically this is the slide that we used at the end of our year end when we knew that we had the fund balance, where we assigned money to the EBLAR, which is our service and termination reserve. We put money in the teacher's retirement system reserve. We put money into the employee retirement systems reserve, and it left us about $5.1 million in our fund balance. Technically, we can have about $3.4 million in our fund balance. That left the difference, the 1.7, which our goal or our plan is to ask the taxpayer for a capital reserve on the May vote, which that's what this slide was. Again, this is right off the other presentation, that we would create a reserve by voter approval on the May vote, and then the board, we would fund that reserve so that when we get to the next May of '23, we'll ask the voters to use the money to pay for the unaidable part of the capital project.
Hey Maureen, just let you know, I'm cutting these guys out. One of our town supervisors had just said, and I saw it, we're getting 4 inches of snow for every hour, for the next 3 hours. And just look at the map, we're getting pounded here right now.
So we're done.
Perfect. And we're going to go over this again, guys. We did this. This is not the first time we shared this presentation. We're going to obviously show it more and provide opportunities here if you guys ask questions.
want to discuss it, go over it, just give me a gallon.
So Tom, I don't want to skip over this. So we had an increase in enrollment of 400.
Yeah, so interesting enough, we have some families that are choosing to pay tuition from neighboring districts in Onondaga County that want to come here, so they're paying the tuition for that because they don't live here. But besides that, the last time I checked with Shannon, our registrar, we were above 3,700 and change. So she is seeing an increase, and I see it because I'm seeing these new people coming into the district. So,
Which would be almost a reversal of what, 2 to 3 years of what we lost?
But I wanna be careful with that, because I'm thinking that number includes UCK, and that numbers are only K-12.
oh, that is true.
So I don't think it's gone up that much.
She
I don't think it's gone down, but
has told me that it's gone up about 125 students, not including UPK.
Yeah, but
So,
But that's still big because it was supposed to go down at
Yeah.
least double digits.
if you look back at the Seversky study, it did say that eventually it was going to level off.
Plateau, no
Right,
doubt.
and we thought we were seeing that, but literally like every day, Shannon will come in saying, got a new enrollment, setting up a new, people just moved into the district. So That's happening.
And it's not happening on the reverse as quickly as it was.
Correct.
No, it's definitely slowing down.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think it's important. I don't know what everybody else on the board, and I don't want to keep everybody because it's snow outside, but I have definitely, in my talk with the folks in the community and new people that are in, I mean, she works for me, she has 2 young kids that are going, and she goes, I specifically moved to Central Square for the school district, so, I think it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're literally doing everything we can, and I think that this pandemic has been a testament to all of our staff members, what the board has done to support, but we're doing things in this district that a lot of districts, they're just not doing. And we're able to do this, like with the testing. I had a parent say to me, hey, I just want you to know right now, I'm a teacher in a different district. Clearly, I live in this district. I got 3 kids in this district. I don't know why the district I work in Onondaga County isn't testing symptomatic kids right there. The fact that I've got to drive, I've got to pick them up, I've got to bring them to the state fair, FSHET, bring them back when they're negative. That is huge. And don't get me wrong, we have our number of positive cases, but we have far more kids that are able to go back to class and parents not have to constantly have their lives disrupted. So I give an A+ to all of our staff members, our teachers, our admin, everybody, for what we've been able to accomplish, for sure.
Just in my job alone, because we've been tracking COVID cases that are within the federal employee workforce, within New York State, half New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and last week was the highest number of reported COVID cases that people are positive within the building. So it's, it's a plus to this district that they didn't close when other districts have. And it's, I think it's a testament to you, the administration, and all the teachers.
When you want to give a testament to the teachers, do you know how many teachers that could have said, you know what, I can come back early, but I have a sore throat. But they didn't. They didn't have any symptoms. And they said, I don't have any symptoms. I want to be back with our kids.
Right.
So hats off to the teachers, because that's not happening in a lot of other districts.
So it's not. And the numbers are higher than they've ever been.
Yep.
So,
And parents are thrilled with the Sunday testing. I didn't come to this last one, but I've been coming along, and then the Thursday over break. And that hallway, it's like getting on a ride at Universal. It winds, it goes, they keep them spread out, but the parents are thrilled. They're thrilled, saying thank you for providing this, because we can't get tests. So this is wonderful. So more to come.
Okay, item E, personnel. Can I have a motion to accept item E?
A motion. Second.
Christie and Kathy.
Is there a motion to accept item E?
Christie and Kathy. All in favor? Good to go. Item G, board reports.
Oh, did you skip F?
Oh, yes, I did. Jump to the next one. Look at that. Trying to hustle here.
No, I got it. Can we make a motion for all of them? Or do we have
Yeah,
to
we're
take
going to
the
do them
last
all as
one?
one.
All as one?
Item F,
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Kathy, Christie. All in favor? Okay, now item G. I just basically have one of them, and I know some people have heard this. Vanessa Haskins is our board rep for BOCES. She is no longer going to run for the next term, which is a 3-year term. Just to let you know, anybody in our community can run for that, and board members can, just so you know. But it's not a public vote. It's us that vote for that, just like we did before. I know Allison and Ken don't know about that. But if you know anybody that it may be interested, please let them know to contact Tom or myself or Pearl, and then we can bring them up in front of you guys. There's a little procedure to it, but it has to go in front of all the county boards to be voted on once we have approved that. I was a board member for 3 years. I loved BOCES as a board rep. It was awesome. It's a different setup, but it's really kind of a different thing. But if you know of anybody or if you are interested, please let us know.
And we'll post that now on our social media. We just want to be able to let all of you know that.
Yeah, that Vanessa. Mr. Calabufo.
Yeah, I just before we go into executive session, I just want to give a quick update what I was alluding to earlier. So we were very frustrated that the New York State Health Department and the local health departments had changed the definition of fully vaccinated. My goal, our goal collectively, all of you, everyone, is to keep in-person learning going. We know, even the governor has come out and said, hats off to what we tried to do and what our teachers in this district did an amazing job doing with remote learning. It's not the same as having kids in school and connecting with kids in sports and band, the whole 9 yards. So I was devastated last week when they said they were changing that, and anybody that would be eligible for a booster shot, meaning any 18-year-old to up, so including all staff members, that if they were eligible for their booster and did not have their booster, then they would be considered unvaccinated, not fully vaccinated. So where that would kill in-person learning is any staff member, would go back to last year, any staff member that had their 2 shots of Pfizer or Moderna or 1 shot of J&J, and it had gone to the 2-week grace period after, if they came in contact, whether at home, outside of school, or in school, and it met the qualifications of a close contact, they then would have to go home for 5 days minimum and be quarantined. Well, I guess you could say, well, that was better than a week ago when it was 10 days, but still, that would be detrimental to in-person learning. So, a couple days ago, I had one of the main people at the Oswego County Health Department told me something that made me very happy. They said, no, but they're considered essential staff, and so therefore all personnel are, school personnel. So as long as they didn't have symptoms and they had their 2 vaccine dose, they would be quarantined at home for the 5 days, but they could still come to work. But then I got an email this morning from the same person that said, no, I'm sorry, I was wrong, Tom. It doesn't matter if they have symptoms or not. It doesn't matter because they have to have a booster if they were eligible to have a booster. Well, that really frustrated me, and I checked both health departments are doing that. So I had to put something out to our staff, and that included a handful, at least 2 handfuls of staff members that would not be able to come in tomorrow because they had symptoms. So what you saw me emailing, texting during the middle school presentation is letting them know, answering them that yes, as long as they don't have symptoms, they can come back, because at 5:32 today, we got something from the New York State Health Department that totally reversed all that. I immediately sent it to both health departments, and they were shocked. They said, Tom, this is the first time we're seeing it, but that came from the New York State Health Department, so you can do it. Basically, they backpedaled, because I'm sure a lot of people like me complained about that and said, we won't have a workforce. Not only that, you want to talk about things get a little political when you could have a 17-year-old kid sitting in a classroom that had the 2 vaccination doses and has no symptoms but was a close contact. That kid can stay in school, but the kid sitting 3 feet away would be 18, having the exact same things. Again, no booster, but that kid would have to go home for 5 days. To me, that just blows me away. I get it. People are forcing, wanting everybody to get boosted. I get it, but to do it that way, to jeopardize in-person learning, I have a massive problem with. That just seems agenda-based, and my only agenda is to keep in-person learning going in a safe way. So I'm thrilled right now that they backpedaled that, and Andy Martin has been working all night long for the past 2 hours, hour and a half, letting those people know that they can come back in tomorrow. I sent another letter out to all staff explaining that. So I am thrilled. Again, I talked about it earlier, the trips, we're going to let those happen. And parents feel comfortable with that, we're going to let it. Because truth be told, a lot of those kids have sleepover parties. They got fully vaccinated. They're living their lives. And to think that all of a sudden, 4 people in a room, that's going to be the end of the world, is us to think very naively that they're not hanging out at home. A lot of the kids at the secondary level have been vaccinated. They're doing everything. And for the ones that aren't vaccinated and their parents are okay with them doing certain things, those are called parental rights. That's not my right as a superintendent to tell a parent how to live their life when they're at home. So really, that's where we're at right now. And I do have some parents that are asking me, can we switch my kids and go fully remote? Or can we go hybrid? The answer to that is no. At the beginning of the year, we gave an option that a lot of school districts didn't. If a child had an autoimmune situation or if a family member did, we paid that money. We allowed them to go with the fully remote BOCES program. But we said once the school year starts, there's no switching back the other way. Our teachers have been tasked with a monumental challenge to be able to teach these kids, but then also provide remote instruction for kids when they go remote. I am shocked and I'm dismayed by how many school districts are not providing squat for kids when they get put out on quarantine, but our district is providing. They're required to provide it, and the teachers stepped up to the challenge. So the parents have been very gracious when I respond and I tell them why we cannot do that. They understand. That's my report.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go on to item H. I'd like to take this item H in its entirety. Can I have a motion to accept item H?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Christie and Allison. All in favor? Discussion.
I just had a quick question. On H4,
Mhm.
is there an end time to that, the emergency purchases, or that's open-ended?
I didn't put an end time on it, but we did it about a year and 4 months ago, so I wanted to do it again, because we are having some supply chain issues, and so if we could get something somewhere else, we want to have the ability to do it, so I'll do it again within a year, if we still have the same problems. So if you want it to end on June 30th, we can.
Or September 1st, and
Yeah.
let's vote. We can vote on it like July, August to extend
To
it.
keep it going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been doing
Let's do the
it,
meeting in September, I think that'd be good to have it written down.
and that's why I did it again, because it has been over a year. And I
Sure.
just want to make sure that everybody understands that we're doing that.
So we want to just write in right now, like first week in September, and then that's what you'd be, yes, first board pack in September. Then we can readdress that.
Okay, all in favor? Did you all pro? Okay. Next is executive session. Can I ask for a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
It's Kathy and Christie, and this is for tenure of 2 particular people. All in favor? Okay.
Well,
Action to follow or no action?
No action to
no
follow.
action to follow.
7:22.
So I guess Dean and Maureen, you can leave and do it right here.
I gotta pick up.
Well, if we move, we can start.
You can start back.
All right, we'll go across the way. I'm hoping that it's unlocked.